Hello, my name is Leilani, and today I will be explaining how vision works. My presentation is called I Spy. Let's dive in. What is vision? We use our eyes every day to function in our daily lives. Let's think about it. Where would you be without your eyes? Everything would probably be dark and confusing. What a difference life would be to not have vision. It makes you impressed that those who are blind are able to rely on their other senses to support a living. Having vision is an amazing attribute to our ability to thrive. Our special sense of vision is made possible by our eyes and brain working together. Eyes receive light from your surrounding, cells process the light and convert it into electrical signals. The optic nerve sends these signals, and then the brain transforms them into an image. Now, this is a very simplified explanation of how vision works, but don't worry, we will get into the nitty-gritty here soon. You might be asking yourself, how is this possible? Here's an example. Let's say you are at the aquarium and you see a brightly colored fish in a tank swimming around. The light reflects off the fish and stimulates our eyes. Our eyes are able to change that light to flow through our retina into our optic nerve. Finally, our brain is able to convert that into the image of the fish. Next, we're going to talk about the anatomy of the eye. In this next section, we will go into detail about the skeletal structure of the orbit. The glands and ducts of our eye that support tear functions, as well as the 3 layers of the eye. Here is an overview of the anatomy of our eyes. When we look at our eye, we see our eyebrow, eyelashes, maybe you have some mascara on. We also see our eyelid and our eyeball. These are the notable features that we can see with our naked eye. They will help protect the eyeball by keeping out unwanted debris. I will explain the function of these many features in a later slide. Ultimately, they provide protection for the eyeball. The eye is held in the eye cavity of our skull by extrinsic eye muscles that surround the fat layer around the eyeball. Looking closely at the eye, we have 3 notable layers: the fibrosa, vasculosa, and nervosa. In another slide, I will give a description of these layers and their importance. Let's keep going. Orbit. Let's talk about the orbit. As you can see in the image, there are many structures in the orbit. One way to think about it is imagine the eye is your home and your visual cortex is your vacation spot. Your orbit would be the flight you take from your home to your vacation. It's a route between the two, or a connection. In our orbit, we have the eye, of course. There are 6 muscles that start from the skull and wrap around the eye. These muscles allow for the directional rotation of the eye to help you look around. 3 nerves control the action of these muscles. They have individual tasks, but the main nerve is known as the ocular motor nerve. Moving on, we have the eyelid, and the inside of the eyelid is the palpebral, and it covers the sclera. The sclera is made up of epithelial tissue and areola tissue, and it supports the connection of the eyes to the eyelid. Let's recap about the orbit. The orbit is home of many structures of the eye, including eye, surrounding muscles, suspensory ligaments, lacrimal gland, fat, blood vessels, and nerves. The lacrimal gland. It is an exocrine gland that produces the fluid and spills into the lacrimal duct. Their path continues to the medial canthus and wraps around the conjunctiva. This gland is famous for our aqueous humor, or tears. Tears are essential for clearing debris and cleaning our eyes. Without tears, we would have dry, dirty, unprotected eyes. Gross. To understand the structures of this better, I will be focusing on the lacrimal gland and nasolacrimal duct. As you can see in the image, this is the flow of tears through our eyes. The lacrimal gland creates a tear film that has 3 layers, from inner, middle, to outer. The lacrimal gland is made up of an epithelial tissue called serous acini. It creates a fluid called the aqueous humor, which is essential for the eyes to remain in shape, be cleaned, and be nourished. Here is a side note. The production of tears is a response from the parasympathetic and sympathetic systems. So both in our naturally involuntary system, rest and digest, which is known as our parasympathetic, or in a situation of stress, fight or flight, which is our sympathetic system. As you can see in the image, tears flow from the lacrimal gland all the way down to the nasal cavity. Moving on to the nasolacrimal duct. As we learned in the previous slide, aqueous humor is very important. Here is another function of our tears that relates to our nasolacrimal duct. The aqueous humor or tear liquid is produced and drained often to maintain eye health. The drainage of this liquid goes into the nasolacrimal duct. The duct is a complex system of many parts, but is simply put as the liquid flows down into the nasolacrimal sac, down into the nasolacrimal duct, into the valve of Hassner, which ends at the nose. As you can see in the image, those features are labeled. You might be asking yourself, what does this look like in a human? Well, here's an example. You just watched The Notebook for the first time and you're bawling your eyes out. Whether you want to admit it or not, you may find your nose to be running while you're crying. This is the flow of the lacrimal gland and nasolacrimal duct working in your body. Let's look at another way to view the eye. You may want to view it as being split into 2 cavities. These 2 cavities are anterior and posterior chambers. The anterior chamber, or the chamber closer to the front of our body, is important to keep our eye cleaned and moisturized. Like I mentioned before, when we talked about the lacrimal glands, the eye needs aqueous humor or tears. The cavity holds this fluid and is located between our lens and cornea and the tunica fibrosa layer. The second chamber, the posterior chamber, or the chamber further back, is important to help process vision. This is located near our tunica nervosa layer, or our retina. It holds a different type of fluid that is gel-like, but mostly made of water, just a thicker consistency. This is called vitreous humor. It allows our eye to keep its structure and support refracted light going into the retina. Now we are going to look at the layers of the eye. The tunica fibrosa, you can see in the image, is highlighted in blue. Fibrous layer is made of connective tissue in the sclera. The front of this layer is the transparent cornea. It also has the conjunctiva. The conjunctiva is a mucus layer that is a barrier for foreign objects. This layer is on the outside of the eye, and it is essential for our vision abilities and structure. Next, the tunica vasculosa is highlighted in red in this image. The middle vasculosa has the posterior carotid, which provides blood to the layered structure. We also have our suspensory ligament, which is known by 2 different names, one being zonular fibers or Lockwood's ligaments. It is called Lockwood's ligaments because it is named after the person who discovered them. These ligaments attach the ciliary body to the lens. This body is made of ciliary muscles, and these muscles are either relaxed or focused, contracted or dilated. This ability to focus is known as accommodation of the eye. The muscles are able to contract, making your lens thicker so you can focus on an object. To focus more, light needs to be refracted so you can make out the definition of an object. The iris is also a part of this middle layer, and it is smooth muscle tissue and gives us a unique pattern and color of your eye. The iris is between the cornea and the lens, where the cornea is at the forefront and the lens is below. The sphincter muscle of the iris changes the size of the pupil to control the amount of light that enters the eye. Our pupil reacts to bright light and dim light and changes size to support light waves to enter in, aka accommodation. The last layer is the tunica nervosa, and it is labeled as the retina and highlighted in yellow in the image on the slide. The nervosa layer is the most inferior layer, and it contains the lens and the retina. The lens allows light to refract to be able to travel into the retina. The retina contains photoreceptors that allow the conversion of light, and they are known as rods and cones. There are more rods than cones. Rods also help promote peripheral vision. In the next slide, we will continue the topic of the retina. Let's go into detail about the retina. The retina is also layered as well, with two layers, one being the posterior pigmented layer and the other being on the inside. It is called the neural layer. It has bipolar and ganglion neurons. There are also two areas of the retina known as the macula and the peripheral retina. The macula helps with your ability to see images in front of you. The macula also houses the fovea or fovea centralis. Its literal meaning is pit, and that's exactly what it is, a small pit in the macula. The fovea is made of many neurons that support visual acuity, or visual sharpness. They mean the same thing. While the peripheral retina, like the name states, helps with peripheral vision. There's also the optic disc, and it is a doorway for light to enter the retina. It is a ring around the two areas of the retina. It contains no photoreceptors. Remember, photoreceptors are rods and cones. How it works is when you obtain light waves into the eye, they are turned into signals. These signals go straight into your retina and then to your optic disc. This continues on the path of vision to your brain. If you recall from our case study from lesson 9 about the old woman, you will remember that she had some issues with her optic disc. The brain and vision. Our complicated sense of vision is vital to daily functioning. After light goes through the retina, it goes through the optic nerve. This is where those waves go to the thalamus, or specifically the lateral geniculate nucleus. The visual stimuli from the light continues into the visual cortex. Then the electrical signals create our perception. What an incredible ability this is! I am blown away by how complex our bodies are. Physiology of vision. We have gathered a lot of information on the anatomical structures of the eye and how it creates vision. So let's review how vision works. How do we see? Our surroundings have light reflecting off them whenever light is present. The light makes its way to our eyes by electromagnetic radiation. This flows in the form of waves. These waves go into your eye and then into your brain. I'm sure by now you might be confused. You may be thinking, wow, it takes a lot just to see a fish in an aquarium. But wait, how do we see the color of the fish or the water in the fish tank? To determine what shade an object is depends on the rate at which those waves are moving, or their frequency. For us to process the brightness of an object, the amplitude or amount of energy within a wave will create this. As we discussed in the anatomy of the eye, rods help us see when there is low amplitude, while cones help us see when there is high amplitude. So when the brain receives a short frequency wave with a high amplitude wave, we would observe a bright blue object, such as the water around the fish. The passage of light. To understand how light travels through our eye, let's begin with its passage. Light goes through the eye, through the cornea refracts it into the pupil sends it to the iris, and the iris contracts or dilates to take in the amount of light. Then it goes through the lens in the vitreous humor, onto the optic nerve, then it hits the retina. It continues its journey and goes to photoreceptors, then to bipolar neurons, then to ganglion cells, where action potential occurs, or ATP occurs. Then to the optic nerve, which travels from the eyeball to the thalamus to the visual cortex, giving us, drumroll, vision. Here are some things to remember. Vision occurs because of light. Our cornea and lens help you focus. Photoreceptors change light waves into electrical ones. The brain and eye work together to give us vision. I hope you are confident in your ability to understand vision after this slideshow. I'm sure you do. Now you will understand how to see fish in the sea. See what I did there? Okay, I'll stop with the puns. Just kidding. See you later. Here are my citations. Thank you.